Hi, I'm Nick Pawson. You're watching News 24 Live this Monday morning. I'm joined in studio by Sport 24 chief writer Rob Howing and rugby columnist Tank Lanning to review the weekend's sports action. Starting with the rugby. Gentlemen, welcome. Good
Thanks,
morning.
Nick. How's it?
Currie Cup. Rob, I'm going to start with you. I know that's your forte. One round to go. No huge surprises this weekend. What is your take?
Yeah, I think that the current order of business on the log is probably the way it's going to end. Western Province now out of sight, so no problems for them this weekend. Alistair Coetzee, I hope, will do the sensible thing and leave out a few players who've been flogged to death throughout the season. I think Tanky will agree that there are certain players who've played an awful lot of rugby. You know, the Currie Cup has no bye rounds. You just play non-stop for 10 weeks, then into semis, final. And a lot of those players have already been overplayed in Super Rugby anyway. So this is a golden opportunity for Province to rotate a few players. Having said that, of course, you've got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to lose too much continuity. You don't want to get absolutely thumped out of sight. But I think Province will have a little bit of a mix and match sort of team. And perhaps have a powerful bench, for instance, see what happens. If it looks like there's going to be a bit of difficulty, maybe you can give a little bit of a run to some of the tired guys like a Michael Rhodes or a Nizam Carr, whatever. But I think they're out of sight at the top. Very nice situation to be in with a full round to go. The Lions, second place, playing the Cheetahs at home in the final round. You've got to fancy them to win it. They only need to win just a basic one, not even a bonus point required, to be sure of second place and the all-important other home semi-final. Then I fancy the Sharks to finish third, regardless of what happens at Newlands, because the Lions would then be out of sight. So and the Bulls are almost certainly now, I think, going to finish fourth. So the current 1, 2, 3, 4 is how I fancy it to end after the at the end of the last round of ordinary season. A little bit of an anticlimax to some extent, because some of the matches by next weekend might be a little bit sort of dead rubber in certain respects. It's going to be interesting to see just before kickoff how teams kind of arrange the furniture. I think it's still set up for a really nice knockout phase. Just the last round has perhaps not turned out quite the way the sponsors and the television bosses might have anticipated.
Or Province, because they're more than likely going to get the Bulls, and the Bulls have gone from horrific to being tremendous. And it's probably they're going to be the bogey team. You always in the last 2 years, I think the form side has kind of lost out in the final. So I think Province will be a bit nervous there, and I think you're right, Rob. I mean, you either your balancing act is whether you rest players or do you keep continuity. And I think common sense says you rest players, but the more I speak to players, they actually quite enjoy playing more because they stay in the same sort of vein, they stay in form. Weekend off sort of upsets the rhythm.
And they're aware that they're actually reaching the sort of climatic stage of the season, so they want to get the juices flowing, don't they? So it's a tricky one, I suppose.
Tank, how does the sort of dynamic change with the returning Springboks? I see there's a list of contracted players who are going to go off to a camp in Stellenbosch, so they're obviously out. Who will be coming back?
It's interesting this year. So they've obviously had an agreement where all the contracted players are not going to be part of the Currie Cup. And that stems from we don't have central contracting. So you either have to do all or nothing, because otherwise some provinces are going to bleat, and it's one of the fractures, one of the issues within South African rugby. So there's some interesting conundrums. A guy like JJ Engelbrecht played Currie Cup the whole year, definitely not going to go on the end of year tour. Suddenly can't play Currie Cup. Siya Kolisi, Currie Cup, all these guys haven't been part of the box setup, and now they can't play Currie Cup either. So it's going to be very strange. I mean, Currie and JJ are going to be feeling particularly spare in Stellenbosch. So it's a little bit sad that it can't be done on a per player basis, but I can also understand, if some provinces are getting players back and others not, then it's unfair. They've gone with a blanket ban, and basically no one's going to get any players back apart from like Free State will get Opar back, who I thought was astonishingly good on the weekend, especially given the surrounds of his selection. But he's more than likely going to be playing Currie Cup, whereas a guy like Siya Kolisi or Currie Cup and JJ are not going to be playing Currie Cup. So it's a bit strange, but one can understand the blanket ban.
Rob, are you disappointed with the way the Pumas have ended up? I mean, they started really strong and sort of with a surprise package of the season, and then
I always thought the wheels might just come off. They were perhaps a classic case of a team that sort of punches above its weight initially, especially when they're a bit of an unknown factor to some of the other teams. They get a little bit of an aura going, but then injuries start to occur and a little bit of knee jerk when things start to go wrong. you start to sort of test the sort of reserve strength. I think a couple of weeks ago, Tank, Jimmy Stonehouse had a big plunder of the side when he was upset with the sort of downer that they'd got onto, and he brought in a lot of his reserve guys who also showed that they weren't quite, they're not quite the match for the sort of the Test Union teams in terms of player depth. So they've really disappeared very fast off the radar. It's going to take a minor miracle now for them. They're still mathematically in with a shout for sneaking into that berth number 4. But with the Bulls already in 4 and playing Griquas at home in their last match, and the Bulls are 2 from 2, and having been very impressive in thumping the Pumas. Really bursting their bubble in Mbombela. So that's it, I think, for the Pumas. And any talk of a Super Rugby franchise. I think we'll just go onto ice for a little bit.
Speaking of which, the back end of the log is the biggest problem area. Kings, more than likely going to be 0 from 10, and they're
Absolutely.
a Super Rugby team in 216.
Yeah. They're getting worse, not better, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, they're just never in any game that I've seen them play. And obviously, what's going to happen now is 215. They're going to build up to 216. Obviously, it's consecutive, but it's going to be that dreadful sort of they'll be cashing in. And so the original reason for having the Kings was to grow the Eastern Cape area as a sort of thoroughfare of talent or growth of young talent. And they're just going to be buying Oaks in, and it's going to be another hack, and they're going to come 16th, and it's just dreadfully sad. I'm not sure a lot of thinking and planning has gone on there. It's just political backfighting and backstabbing, and the end result is that it's not going to be great for South African rugby.
And then from an 8-team format to 6-team to an 8-team, I mean, when are we going to see some stability in the Currie Cup?
Yeah, I think Currie Cup is pretty much set now. I think the big call now is what the hell you do with those 6 unions. I'm of the opinion that there's absolutely no need for them. I think they just drain the economy of money, and what you should rather do there is keep some club infrastructure if you can, but realistically they're all close enough now to a Super Rugby side, and so if they really have aspirations to play professional rugby, and let's face it, I mean, only 1% of the entire rugby population can play professional rugby. I mean, I think they can make a move to a bigger union.